Hello, welcome to my video series on the heroine's journey. I'm Susanna Liller, and it's time to find your happiness. Today, I want to talk about when women gather together to share their stories and women's circles in general. I am so grateful for when I get to participate in one as a participant and as a facilitator. It is always transformational. And that seems to me what my greatest joy is being able to witness transformation in other people. But first, let me just explain a bit how I've done this, how I've been a part of these different circles and led them. It seems like I'm always working to call them together. I was trying to think of what's the first one perhaps that I ever did. And I think it was in 2000 when I was just starting out, and I gave a workshop on intuitive visioning. Back then, basically, it was creating your own personal strategic plan, because I had been doing strategic plans with companies, people who said, come and facilitate us through a strategic planning process, and they would go on a retreat. And at some point, I realized, well, we should go on retreats. We should do visioning of where we want to be, individuals, in 3 years. So I started creating workshops and retreats where women could do that. And the groups that formed happened after the retreat, because we would put together a plan, which was always fine. Yes, you have a vision, you take the time to have a personal retreat, you come up with a plan for what you want to do over the next 3 years, and then life takes over and everything that you said you were going to do gets overcome by events. So this was a way, was really having accountability, saying, okay, we're going to meet in a month and see how you've done to your plan. And then we're going to meet in another month. And this is actually was the exact same thing that I did in organizations, keeping people accountable. A different kind of a circle that I really enjoyed was something actually I held more than once in my faith community, in my church. And it was called an abundance circle. And it was based on the book by John Randolph Price called The Abundance Book. And it involved doing 10 different abundance principles, really changing your mindset about money and abundance by saying these principles over and writing about them and meditating on them. It was a 40-day commitment, and you'd cycle through these 10 principles. I think you'd say them like 4 times throughout those 40 days. Yeah, that makes sense. 10 times 4. So that was very powerful because people were really making inroads. And I enjoyed doing groups around books. And then, of course, Julia Cameron, if you've read any of my work, you'll know I'm a huge fan. She is the author of The Artist's Way. And she has a process, a book, then the process that goes with it. It's a 12-week process for 2 to 3 hours each. She called the groups that you would gather to do this together creative clusters. And the main assignment was every single morning doing morning pages, 3 pages of whatever comes across your mind, writing down 8.5 by 11, just getting it out first thing in the morning. And then artist states. So morning pages she calls the sending, and artist states is the receiving. So kind of like a radio going out, and an artist state is doing something by yourself just for you. And it's something that's fun. Sometimes she said it's like taking your creative child, your inner creative child, out on a date. And what would she want? Ice cream, visit a museum, fly a kite, just something that's fun. So I led groups, creative clusters in that process. And here's the thing, too. When I do something like the Abundance Circle groups or the Artist's Way groups, it's really something to hold myself accountable. I know that I will do the work if those other people are doing it with me, and particularly if they expect me to be sending out the reminders and gathering them and finding the space. So it was as much a gift to myself. Then I started the Heroine's Journey work in 2008, 2009, and I had in-person classes. And I had them in different places, and there were three different sets of lessons that were grouped together. So it was Heroine's Journey 1 and Heroine's Journey 2 and Heroine's Journey 3. People could sign up for the next one. And again, that was another very satisfactory, watching the women go through this process together, learn from each other. And then came the pandemic, and you couldn't do things in person. But of course, the silver lining for me was I created an online course. It was a do-it-yourself. It's still available in the School for Real Life Heroines, an online course to go through the entire heroine's journey framework, looking at how your life that you're living right now fits in that framework. And that was great because I could get it all online and then people would have it. And I even offered it for free to just have people check it out. But the downside for me was I didn't know how people were doing. I didn't have that connection, which again is so satisfying for me. And I found too that people were signing up and starting, and then they would sort of stop. They'd get stuck. So those were some experimental that worked. There was some experimental that didn't work, but these were the ones that really took hold, and I was able to work with people over a period of time, and they were able to work with each other. So the beauty, looking at these, I was the facilitator. I was more of a guide through the material in all of these. I wasn't coaching. I have coached coaching groups, and it's very different. There isn't that necessarily give and take with somebody in one of these groups that I'm describing. It's more as a guide, as a way to hold you accountable as you go through whatever it is. The Artist's Way, the Abundance Circle work, Heroine's Journey. There are ground rules, but my coaching school, the Hudson Institute of Coaching, is very much based on the principle of a leader leads from behind. So it's not somebody out there in front saying, this is what you're going to do. Though, of course, there's usually assignments, and the guide usually makes sure that everybody knows what they are. But it's just gentle nudging here and there if that's needed. So what I would tell people about my group work, this circle work, is that one-on-one is great. And I always have had that coaching one-on-one experience available to people. And sometimes it's the best way. But adding in other women, I would always tell them, is their experiences, their knowledge, their journey can make the learning so much richer. And so I welcomed a chance to work through anything with a group, with a circle of women, as well as one-on-one when that was needed. And there always seemed to be that the right people showed up. the people that best matched with the other people around the table. Synchronicities happened. Maybe somebody was looking for advice on a project, and there sitting next to them was the perfect person who had done something that they were about to do, and they could share what they knew. And there's something too about when you get into a group, a circle, and then you stay for a while. Because, well, you know, the norming, storming, performing, eventually adjourning stages of any team, a circle, it takes some time to develop trust. And then once you do, then you can open up. And if you open up, then there's a better chance of connecting with somebody else or getting something out that needs to be looked at, to shine the light on it, to share it with people. And so learning goes deeper. And then I think the chance for transformation is deeper. And then I have done a couple other things since the pandemic. So I put the online course out there. But again, I was desperate, not desperate, but really wanting to see how people were doing and to connect. So I started what I call a Heroines gathering once a month at the end of the month. It's hard to believe that these have been going on monthly for 2 years. And I would tell people at the onset that we are all on our individual heroines' journeys. We meet our threshold guardians, those voices that keep chattering and telling us you can't do it and you'll never amount to anything and you'll never get enough money. And the dragons that are deeper set beliefs that really get us stuck. And then we meet allies and mentors. And I tell them these meetings, these monthly meetings, it's like we're meeting at a crossroads on our journey. Maybe we're meeting in an inn and sharing a meal, but what we're really doing is sharing stories. We're not giving advice. Well, if you want it, always you can check in with somebody and ask them to give you feedback, but it's really about how are you doing on the journey and sharing your story. So from that, I got this idea also, and it harkens back to that very first when I told you I gathered the group together after they did the planning with me way back in 2000. I got the idea for accountability groups. And accountability groups you can sign up for with the course, but it's a way to hold you accountable because we meet once a week and I'm there as a guide to hear how people are doing. It lasts an hour, but it's enough to get people to make sure that they're doing the work and not stalling out. And it is work. This course has 4 modules. There's 8 lessons in each one. It's a lot. People are busy, women are busy, and it goes deep. It asks you to really look inside yourself. So I knew that people could use a helping hand with it, help them travel through the course. I always had done this work in person. This was my selfish need, and I really wanted to hear how people were doing. And sometimes work is best done alone. But the depths reached if you can connect with a group of women who similarly want to learn and grow. And that's important. There needs to be from the inside, yes, I want to do better. I want to get better as who I am and my identity. And I want to be more me. I want to take off the layers. It's just doing the work, and who are open to being vulnerable, to sharing how they're doing. Well, that's a real gift when that happens. So as I have put this down in my notes and thinking about it, for me, it is about that transformation. That's the bottom line. It's being a witness to someone else's transformation. The women in the accountability group, there were 3 who met with me last night. And those three are getting ready to graduate in a month or so. And they have come so far since January. They have almost completed the course. And last night, in talking about their experience traveling through together for 5 months now, they talked about how they had changed. One called it a rebirth. They noted how different they were from when they began. And in the beginning, they were in some sort of a transition, leaving something that they had been doing and traveling on the journey to, they weren't even sure where they were going. So it's not easy doing this kind of work, doing transformational work. You have to stay the course, and to be with other women and do it as a group, as a team, you have to show up for each other. It's kind of like being in a band. If you're playing the piano, you can't not come, because then they can't play the tune. So you have to show up for each other. And if you don't do the work, do your homework, learn the notes, then you're not fully participating. And that affects everyone. I have written down the guidelines. I call them the Heroines Gathering Guidelines, to give you an idea of the kind of loose ground rules we have. So many years of facilitator of groups in an organizational setting, I'm a big believer in some sort of ground rules. So here they are. We gather to share our stories from the road. Share what you feel comfortable sharing or not. You don't have to share, you can just listen. Observe confidentiality, which means what's said in the room stays in the room. It's not about going outside of the circle and sharing what other people said, unless there's some way you can check with the person, and if there's a need, then to work it out with the person. Watch out for your threshold guardians, for judging yourself or others, and don't compare your leap, your journey to others. So again, the threshold guardian, some people call it the critic. In Gremlins is another term. But in the heroine's journey, they're threshold guardians because they often first appear when you're contemplating making a change, doing something different, transitioning to something. They come with all their warnings. And I tell people it's part of your old brain, reptilian brain, that has these patterned warnings just to keep you safe. And so to beware of those judging you, but also judging others. And also comparing is deadly to you, as well as to your effectiveness in any women's circle, because everybody's journey is so unique. You can't possibly compare. I also say, hold on to your advice. If you have something you think would help another, wait until after the gathering and then ask if they want to hear it. So hold on to it, because they might not want advice. They might not want feedback. They just might want a listener, the opportunity to share their story. And most often that's the case. And then I tell them, the very fact that you're here is significant. You listened to something within you that suggested that you come. That's your inner voice, your intuition. It is the best guide for you on your journey. And so the women who show up, and of course, things get in the way, and your son graduates, your daughter's got a soccer game, all kinds of things happen. But if you keep feeling the urge to come back, that is significant. It's significant to everybody who sits around the circle. When I worked in corporate organizations facilitating teams, we talk a lot about, and mostly there were teams in conflict. So that's different from these women's groups I'm talking about, but we talk about what makes a team. And I got to witness their transformation too. I think that's why I loved conflict management so much, mediation of groups, because when things shifted, when somebody said, "Oh, I heard what you just said, and I didn't realize that that's why you did what you did," the light bulb of understanding comes on and things shift and the group is transformed. Nothing is more gratifying than seeing that. And I think what I get to witness as women come and detail more about their journey and what they've been doing and the successes they've had, and I hear that it's the same kind of great feeling that you're able to be on the sidelines watching that kind of those results from what the steps that the heroine has taken. So I believe our work is to evolve. That's why we're here. That's why we get calls, and I believe the calls come from our souls, however you define that. God, the mystery, the universe, something, intuition inside of us calls to us and gives us an opportunity to make a change. And it will assuredly, if we answer that call, lead us on an adventure. And yes, we'll have to go into an unknown situation, an unknown relationship, an unknown way. We haven't been there before. But transformation, positive change will be at the end of the road when you cross the return threshold and you look, and this is what the women last night were doing, assessing the gifts that they had received because they had been on a particular journey. And more confidence, clarity, a feeling of happiness, real joy, knowing that they were on the right road for them, that they had left something that wasn't the right road for them or had changed. Maybe it was at first, but then it wasn't. So that happens. You cross the return threshold, then you share the lessons you've learned and your experience and your sharing with others. That experience will benefit your community, the people around you, and ultimately the ripples go out. Who knows? And then guess what? When it's over, yeah, we'll be asked to do it again. We'll get another call, another journey, another opportunity to transform and evolve. And every time we do, it helps everyone. So I encourage you, take the journey and then join in circles. And you're certainly welcome to contact me about the ones that I have going. We would love to have you. And bless you on the journey. Please join me for my next video. I hope you will, and I'll see you then.